Next, you want to very carefully remove the two rubber boots off the stock shifter. They'll slide off, but be careful. Don't let it hang on any of the sharp edges and tear. If yours is exceptionally dry, a little WD-40 will get it off. And we're going to transfer those to the Hurst shifter. There's a flat area on the upper boot. You want to make sure that that's facing towards the rear of the vehicle. And you also want to make sure that the boot slide over the lip on the shifter and seals it. That's to keep debris out of the shifting mechanism. There's also a groove on the top of the shifter. I'm going to make sure that that sits in properly as well. Next, we want to reinstall the Hurst shifter. Actually, I guess I should say install. You may have to muscle it a little bit to get the lower change rod to line up. It seems like the Hurst is just a little bit tight, but it's going. Now, the manual didn't say anything about this, but since this bolt, this lower shift rod bolt, had Loctite on it, when I took it out, I'm going to go ahead and put some more back on it before I put it back in. I definitely wouldn't want that thing coming out while I'm driving down the road. And the torque on that bolt is 15 millimeters. I mean, 15 foot-pounds. Let's see if I can get him. Next, I'm going to put our locking pins in the front. Okay, so 15 minutes later, those two front pins are in. I got to tell you, they're a little bit of a pain in the butt, especially the passenger side, right-hand side. You just basically have to wiggle the shifter linkage around until you can get the pin started and push it through. The grommets already had some grease in them on the Hurst shifter, so I didn't try to grease it or anything. After about 15 minutes of playing with it, I was able to get it. Looks like you could probably get it pretty easy from underneath the car, but I didn't want to have to go through the trouble of jacking mine up, so I just fought with it till I got it. Anyway, now we're ready to install the transmission cover. When reinstalling the cover plate, you want to make sure that the Hurst, the rear mounting nut, the threads of the Hurst shifter come through the hole in the cover so that you can get that nut on there. And go ahead and seat that finger tight while you're putting in your other 6. And then tighten this one down. And the torque is 15 foot-pounds. There we go. Don't forget to get your rubber boot seated around the cover plate. You also want to make sure that it's still around the lip of the Hurst shifter. Looks pretty good. Now we just want to reinstall our rubber cover. If you disconnected any wiring harnesses, go ahead and plug those back on. Next, I'm going to reinstall the rear AC vent. Next, you want to set the console back in the car. From the back, just slide it forward. And don't forget to hook up your electrical connections to the iPod adapter if you have it, and the cigarette, or 12 volt I guess I should say, 12 volt adapter in the console. When reinstalling the center console, make sure that the air conditioning, the rear air conditioning tunnel, is seated all the way up against the connection underneath the dash. The way you'll know is when where your screws go is flush. When all that's flush, you've got it seated properly. And you also want to make sure in the rear that the AC tunnel is connected to the back of the vents. There's foam around and there's like a little square that slides into. Again, really pay attention to your wiring. You don't want anything crushed. For example, the 12-volt connection that goes into your console runs under this. Runs under that, and you can clip it in right there. The reason it runs under is that your cup holder's sitting there. You don't want it to get smashed. Before reinstalling the cup holder assembly, make sure you go ahead and tighten up your 8mm bolts that hold the console in. Keep in mind this is plastic, so you don't want to tighten them too tight, just snug. And then of course, go ahead and reinstall your Phillips screws in the front. Again, just snug. All this is plastic. You don't want to break anything. Reconnect the front 12-volt connection. Reconnect your cup holder lights. And this just snaps back in place. Finally, just put your rubber tray back into your console. Now at this point, if you're going to reuse the stock shifter, you're pretty much done. All you need to do is line up those two bolt holes into the Hurst shifter and put the bolts in and torque them to 20 foot-pounds, and then re-snap this back onto your center console, and that's it. I'm going to use the Hurst white ball shifter, so we need to do a little work. So what we need to do is get the leather boot off of our original shifter, and as you can see, it is real leather. To do it, you just pry this plastic piece off. It's a little bit easier said than done. It's got a gap in it right here, and you'll notice it goes on that shaft. What I did is ended up using one of my plastic pry tools and just prying it out and up, and it came off. But you can see it's pretty rough on the hands. That plastic clip is sharp, and I got my thumb and my hand, so be careful when you're going to take that off. And then you can separate the shifter from the boot. What we want to do is put our Hurst retainer, little rubber retainer, slide that up on the Hurst shifter, Hurst shift stick I should say. Insert that